You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast. Thanks for adventuring with us as we discover what incredible athletes and outdoor enthusiasts are doing all over the world. Now here's your host, Kurt Linville.
Hello, Adventure Sports Podcast family. So today is Friday, which means it's a flashback episode, of course. And here's the funny thing. I texted my old friend Pete Waldroop today, and we were texting back and forth, and man, so many things have happened. So much water has gone under the bridge since he was on the Adventure Sports Podcast on episode, you ready for this? 18. And now this is episode 1150. Holy cow, it's just so much fun. Pete's a great guy, and we were just texting back and forth and having a good time, and then I remembered that he had been on the show way back in the beginning, and so I thought, you know what, tomorrow is Flashback Friday. I'm gonna find this episode if I can and replay it just for nostalgia's sake, if nothing else. But it's about skydiving, and the fun of it is going to be that you're going to hear what the Adventure Sports Podcast was like way back in the day before modern technology made podcasting sound so much better. And the podcasts were shorter back then. I think this one's just a little over 40 minutes. But I do remember that it was a really fun episode. And man, the things that I could tell you about Pete. We actually met, believe it or not, 6th grade. We both played the trombone. He went to one elementary school. I went to another, and the director decided to pull all the elementary schools together for a combined concert. And we were kind of competing because I was first chair at my school, and he was first chair at his school. And so we were smacked together in this combined band. And we actually enjoyed each other quite a lot. We ended up going to the first year of college to the same place, and we stayed in touch ever since then. We did Free Wheel together, which is a 500-mile road biking trip in Oklahoma that we used to do. And more recently, Pete brought a bunch of friends out to Colorado, and we spent a week just kind of exploring Colorado and all the things that it has to offer. But there was another adventure I've got to tell you about. Pete took me out on his yacht, and his yacht is rated for, I think, about 15-foot seas, and we got caught in a storm that had 15-foot seas, and the yacht fell off of several waves that were breaking about 15 feet high and literally dropped down into the trough. We both wondered, I think, if this was going to turn out well, but in the end, it did. We made it to our destination, and I mean, it was mayhem. Stuff was flying through the air everywhere inside of this boat, and everyone was turning green and slamming into things, and we were trying to batten down the hatches, but I mean, it was craziness. But Pete was at the helm, and Steady Eddie, man, he got us there through the storm, and we will always have that special and precarious memory together. So tonight we were texting back and forth, and I let Pete know that I was climbing Kilimanjaro, which I hadn't told him yet, and he donated to We See Hope to help the kids in Africa. Pete, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I love the support. We've had other people that have donated as well. And so the grand total for the Adventure Sports Podcast is $1,556, and I feel really good about that, $1,556. But of course, that's out of $20,000 that we're trying to raise, $1 per foot rounded up for Kilimanjaro. So there's still plenty of room for you to contribute and participate and be a part of the Kilimanjaro Climbing for Change 2026 We See Hope expedition. There are 15 climbers that are going to be climbing Kilimanjaro, and each one of those 15 climbers is raising $20,000 for We See Hope. It is a wonderful cause to help young people in Africa that wouldn't really have a crack at life without a little bit of a leg up. And We See Hope provides that. They get housing, they get education, they get entrepreneurial skills so that they can build a life. They get a chance that they probably wouldn't have had otherwise. Just think about what it would be like to be a child living on the streets without parents in Africa. And that's what We See Hope is trying to address. So it's such a great cause. So here's the great thing. 15 people climbing Kilimanjaro, each raising $20,000 is a $300,000 goal. And I hope we make it. I want to make it. I want to see $300,000 for the kids. But, drum roll, we are at $105,000, almost $106,000 right now for We See Hope. That is so awesome. We've broken $100,000. And you can be a part of this. All you need to do is go to charity.pledgeit.org/climbing for change. And I will put that link in the show notes, of course. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you can see the Adventure Sports Podcast section. Click on that, and that way we get credit for the money that you donate to help We See Hope help these kids in Africa. I got to tell you one more story about Pete, because it's one that just sticks out in my mind. I lived on a large farm in northeastern Oklahoma in the foothills of the Ozarks, and Pete came over on a weekend, and we were just, kicking around the farm, playing in the creeks, running through the fields, all the things young guys do. And we came to a large creek. It was big enough that it was kind of in a flood stage, and it would have been a serious swim to try to get across it. So it was a pretty good size, strong current, that kind of stuff. And we had just been having so much fun, laughing, goofing off, that kind of thing. We stood on the edge of this stream, and all of a sudden, Pete looks at me, and his eyes are as big as saucers, and I look at him, and I'm the same way. We were both hit with a sudden terror for no reason. Scared to death. We looked at each other, and we said, "Let's go!" And we turned around and ran. We ran for our lives. And to this day, I do not know what that was. It's one of the things that I count in the category of mysteries that happen in the woods. And some people believe. You've probably heard the Sasquatch episode that I put out, right? We've talked about Sasquatch a few times on the podcast, but some people believe that the reason why there aren't more Bigfoot sightings is because Bigfoot makes sub-audible sounds, kind of like an elephant does, but they're the kind of vibrations that actually generate fear and panic in people. So it scares people away. Now, I have no idea. I'm speculating. Obviously, we don't even know if Bigfoot is real. I mean, all of this is just a fun story. But it happened to Pete and me standing on the banks of this flooded stream for no reason. We were having so much fun, and all of a sudden, we were terrified. We took off, and we ran for all we were worth. I don't know what it is. I don't have any idea, but it's just kind of a funny story. Pete, thank you for all the good times that we've had. And here is the episode on skydiving with Pete Waldroop.
And we had what's called a wrap. And basically, we crashed parachutes through each other. We were spinning. So I had one of my buddies' parachutes was wrapped around my head, and we were in a spinning, mess of tangled canopies.
This is the Adventure Sports Podcast, brought to you by 180 TAC. Get out there and have some fun. Welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. This is your host, Kurt Linville. Today is about skydiving with Pete Waldroop. Pete grew up in a small town in the Ozarks of northeastern Oklahoma. He did a lot of road biking, canoeing, hiking, and camping. But then when he turned 18, he found his true passion, he took up skydiving. Since then, he's led an adventure-filled life as an entrepreneur, trying all sorts of adventure sports, including sailing and wakeboarding and, of course, skydiving. Pete now has over 2,800 jumps and is active in skydiving competitions, competing at the USPA, U.S. National Skydiving Championships, for the last 5 years. He's been awarded 1 bronze and 6 silver medals in various disciplines, including canopy relative work formations and 4- and 8-person freefall formations. Pete, welcome to the program.
Hey, good morning, Kurt. Thanks.
So, Pete, I know that there are going to be a lot of listeners who are going to have a lot of curious questions about skydiving. It's one of those sports that is pretty edgy, and people just always want to know, what is that really like? So I'm glad you're here today to help our listeners understand more about the sport. Will you take a few minutes to tell the listeners more about yourself and your connection and experience in skydiving?
Sure, I'm happy to do it. Good morning, everyone. I started skydiving, like you said, when I was 18, and I actually saw the sport. The town that I grew up in amazingly held the world championships when I was 4 or 5, and I saw the sport then, and I just all those years thought about it, and my brother did the same thing. He was older, so when he turned 18, you had to be 18 in Oklahoma to skydive, and so when our parents were not going to agree to sign for us when we were younger than 18. So when we were 18, he went out and made his first jump. I was there, I watched him, and 6 years later, I went and made my first jump the same way. And I think it just hooked me for life. I made about 550 jumps between then and the time I got out of college, or a little bit after college, I guess. And then I took a break for a few years from the sport, like a lot of people do as life takes over. And then I got back into the sport several years ago, and I'd always thought that I would, and I wanted to. And I found that there were a lot of skydivers who'd done the same thing. Life kind of took over and they got busy, and then they came back to that sport that they loved. But I'll tell you, when you're 3 miles up in the air and you open the door and you look out and you're looking down at clouds, you completely clear your mind of anything that is out there, any of the stress and the problems and the day-to-day worries and the relationships and the work and all the stuff that's going on. It disappears, and you have this moment of startling clarity where all you do is you realize, I'm about to leap into space, and I love it. I'm going to fly through the sky for the next minute and a few seconds, and then I'm going to get under this canopy, and I'm gonna soar like a bird or a plane, and it's just fantastic.
Wow, you make it sound so much fun. And I got to tell the listeners, it's been quite a while back, but I actually did one jump with Pete, and he was there for it. And I can tell you, from that jump that I did, his description is dead on. Dead on. It's just it's an amazing experience. I think everyone needs to do it at least once, like I did, and I'm glad that Pete has been able to make a lifelong passion out of it. Pete, why would you encourage people to try skydiving?
You know, I'll say that I think if you are looking for something that you can be passionate about and you like the thrill idea of it, it's a great sport to try. But beyond even that, I think the camaraderie of the sport and the people that are there, you will meet people from all different walks of life, doctors, lawyers, every profession you can imagine, mechanics, and one of my good friends does pole work for an electric company, and you're just going to meet people who have this single bond together, and you're there in that environment, and background and race and religion and all the things that sometimes separate us don't matter when you're skydiving. You become a part of a community, and so if you seek that along with a sport that is just so exciting, then I would say it's an opportunity to go try something and see if you love it. It's fun. A lot of people come out and try the sport. A lot of people, like you did it, Kurt, a lot of tandems, and they try it and they say, okay, it was awesome. I may not do it again. But then you get those folks who, kind of like me, they do it and they're like, I know right then I've got to do it again, and I want to be a part of what's going on. And I can walk to a drop zone anywhere in the country, and I love the smell of parachutes and just the whole environment. And I walk in and I feel at home wherever I am.
That's fun. I would have really enjoyed doing skydiving as a long-term sport, but I had some things in my life at the time that just made it seem like it was a long reach. And then I started my family, and, life just carries on. But I would have really enjoyed skydiving as a lifelong pursuit, because it is that fun, and it's just like Pete said, amazing way to get rid of all the stress, for the few moments that you're in free fall and then under the canopy, there's nothing else going on except for what you're doing right there, right then. And when you land, then any stress that you had, it's gone. You just burned it all off when you stepped out of that plane.
Yep, that's exactly right, Kurt. I've known you for a long time. You certainly share the adventure bug that I have as well, and I love your podcast for that reason.
So people are going to want to know more about how you got into skydiving, not just the whys, but if someone wanted to try skydiving today, what do? They go to some drop zone, and then what?
Well, great question for sure. It's a lot easier today than it was 23 years ago when I started. Actually, make that almost 30 years ago.
I was going to say.
Now that I'm doing the math, it's actually quite a bit, 29 years ago. Today, of course, get on the internet and find a drop zone near you. We didn't have that then. I just happen to know where one was. But find a drop zone. Now, what I would suggest is I'd do a little research. I would only go to a USPA drop zone. That's the United States Parachute Association. And those are the drop zones that have been rated by the USPA for safety of equipment and people, and they're following the practices. And I would start with that. There are a few drop zones out there that are not USPA affiliated, and I wouldn't go there to start. I think there's some risk to the sport, and you want to go to the safest possible facility. So the next thing I would do is look around for the drop zone. If you've got a choice, I live in Dallas. We have a choice of drop zones. There are some smaller ones where they have one single 182 aircraft. It's a 4-person plane. Those are fine. I will say what I did was I found a drop zone. I go to Skydive Dallas, which is a fantastic facility, and they've got 2 large aircraft. One's a Twin Otter. Holds 23 skydivers, and the other is a Cessna Caravan, and it holds 13 or 14, something like that. So these are quality aircraft, well maintained, and the equipment is well maintained. And so the better skydivers tend to go to these larger facilities. So by that nature, there's more there. The gear is newer, better. The instructors are current. And so I think look around and try to find, the best facility near you to go to. Then it's pretty easy. You get there, you tell them, hey, I'd like to try skydiving. They're going to ask you how you want to try it. There's a couple of methods. The first method and the easiest way to try it is the way you tried it, Kurt, which is by tandem. And what you do is you sign up for a class, and it'll take you about half a day probably by the time you do it all. But really what you do is you show up, you watch a 30-minute video. Then when they call your slot, you put your gear on, and you go up with an instructor. You're attached to them in free fall, and they're going to walk you through the whole skydive. So what you get to do is experience skydiving, everything from opening that door and looking out into space and realizing, holy cow, what did I do? I'm about to leap from a plane, to free fall, to actually soaring through the clouds, although we're not supposed to soar through the clouds, and then opening the canopy and landing, and you get the whole experience, and it's the safest, easiest way to do it. That's going to cost you couple $100, and if you want to add video, it's probably another $100, something like that, to give you a sense of it. Then the other way to do it is what's called accelerated free fall. And with accelerated free fall, what you do is you go up with 2 instructors. You're a fully coached, prepared skydiver. You have a full day of training before you go, and then they go up with you and assist you, but you have your own parachute. You're not attached to anyone. They make sure that you can open the parachute, etc. I always recommend that you do the tandem first because it gives you a chance to really see the sport. And one of the things that happens that first time, and frankly a lot of times, after you jump out of a plane, you get what's called sensory overload. It's almost too much to take for the first couple of seconds that you just leapt from a plane, right? And so I think tandem is a great way to try the sport safely to start. And then a lot of people who love the sport after that can then go on and do the accelerated free fall program. So either of those are great, but that's the order I'd recommend it. Find a great drop zone, do a tandem jump, see if you love it.
So sensory overload, I've got to tell a little bit of my story, Pete, because you mentioned that I'm the kind of guy who does well under pressure and tense situations. I generally make wise decisions and get through just fine. I preface it that way because one of the things that they teach you is you jump out of the plane, the first thing you want to do is arch your back and put your arms and legs out so you're in that free fall position. I stepped out on the strut of that airplane, and we rolled off of that plane, and it was probably 2-3 seconds before I remembered to hit that hard arch and get into the free fall position because it was sensory overload. We were just doing flips, and I loved it, but I was like, wow. And then we kind of had an interesting dive. I don't know if you remember, Pete, but our drogue chute, which is used to slow a tandem dive down and free fall a little bit, had twisted a little bit, and it started a spinning. And the funny thing is that here I am in free fall, and I'm watching the world spin in circles, and with a sensory overload, I was like, wow, what's going on? I didn't even realize that we were spinning like we were. I just, it was just stuff was going on, and I was excited and having fun. And I was just surprised, I guess, to say that it was so much of a growth experience that at first I didn't realize that I hadn't hit my free fall position. And then when we were spinning, I didn't even collect that we were spinning for a few seconds. So there is some sensory overload.
Yep, no question. And everybody experiences exactly what you did, including me and everyone else who's done the sport. And even, first 100 jumps, I think, are kind of tough. And then you gradually get, I won't say tough, but I'll say you get some of that sensory overload. But then you gradually get where you're really cognizant throughout the whole process. When we're competing now, we're trying to be out exiting the plane and moving in under a second. And so you've got to be completely aware of what's going on at all times. I'm looking at the whole team. I'm trying to take it all in. That doesn't happen the first jump you make, of course, right? When you're leaping from the plane and all you can think is, oh my gosh, I just leapt from a plane. I'm crazy.
The moment for me was when the instructor told me it was time to step out on that airplane strut. I couldn't believe I was stepping out of an airplane.
That's right.
And then once I'm in that position, as soon as he put his weight behind me, I was gone. I didn't have a choice about jumping or not jumping. We're just going. But it was amazing experience. So,
yep.
Pete, tell us about one of the most amazing skydiving experiences that you've had that you would say really hooked you on the sport. Give us an idea of why you've kept doing this for, goodness, what are we saying now, 30 years?
29 years. That's not it. Yeah, great. I think there's so many great experiences like that. For me, if I think in more recent years, one of the great experiences was going to the U.S. Nationals in 2010 with a team that I'd trained with all year, and being in the door, the first jump at Nationals, and looking out and realizing that all the work we'd put in, not only were we skydiving and leaping out of a plane, but I can still remember vividly the picture in my mind and every moment of, how beautiful it was that day. It was in outside Chicago, and it was a little bit crisp and cool. It was in September. And I just remember thinking, here I am with these four guys. There's four of us in four-way that are doing the competition, and one video person above us. But the video person is just as important as the rest of the team. And I remember thinking, I love these guys, and here we are, we're getting ready to, we trained for a year to do this, to be here for 10 jumps. And I thought, man, this is one of the greatest experiences of my life to just get to do this. And I've done that several times. I did that same thing back in the 80s when I started skydiving with a team that I with then for canopy relative work, where we're building formations with our canopies open as opposed to building them in free fall. And I can remember thinking the same thing then, that, here it is, we've trained hard, we've worked hard, and I'm about to do this, and it's just so rewarding.
That's neat. I think a lot of people may have thought that you would say, oh, it's the feeling of flight, it's the freedom, it's the experiences you have flying through the clouds or what have you. But I like it that what you brought out was camaraderie, friendship, hard work, goal achievement, competing, doing something that you've worked hard for, and you have that fulfillment. That's really cool. So what is it like when you fall out of a plane or you jump out of a plane? Does it feel like you're falling, or do you feel like you're flying? Or take us through the experience from jumping to the plane to landing.
Great. Okay. So you're on the ground, you've got your parachute packed. One of the things that's great in today's skydiving world is that we now have professional packers. When I was growing up and I was, a poor kid from Oklahoma in the 80s, I did my own packing. So I packed my own first 550 jumps. I don't pack anymore. I pay someone to pack my parachute for me. It cost me $6 plus tip, and it's well worth it. So I put my newly packed parachute on, and I'll make 12 jumps in a day to give listeners an idea. A little less if we're not training, but on a training day, we normally train 12 and 12. So put your gear on, and plane comes around. You have it on a load number. I'm on Otter 27, for example, and so I'll walk out to the aircraft when we're signaled by the loader with 24 other people. We'll climb on the plane, and it's in the summertime, of course. In Texas, it's hot, hotter than blazes. And you're wearing a jumpsuit and a parachute and a helmet, and you're sweating like crazy. In the spring and fall, it's really beautiful because you're not quite so hot. Anyway, so they shut the door on the plane. It's just so hot. Plane takes off, and that's fine. We're actually on a grass strip. A lot of them are on concrete strips, but you get a little bouncing around. And then at 1,500 feet, we can open the door. So some of us are actually sitting back by the door, and usually the teams like us are at the very back of the plane for a variety of reasons, mostly because we get out first. And so we'll pop that door open, so just sitting there at 1,500 feet with the door open where you could easily just fall out, which is always funny because it never happens, but you could if you wanted to. And you're letting that cool air blow in and cool you off, and you finally stop sweating in the summer because it's hot. And plane circles, climbs to altitude. It takes about 15 minutes with an Otter versus 45 with a Cessna 182. Another good reason to find a drop zone with an Otter if you can.
Those Otters work.
That's right. So it gets cooler and cooler as you climb, and we competition jump from 10,500 feet. We fun jump from 13,500 feet. So you get to 13,500 and it's actually kind of chilly. Even in the middle of summer, it's fun. It's a good 30, 40 degrees cooler than on the ground typically. And by this time, we've probably closed the door so people can get ready, do gear checks, safety checks, all that. So we go through all that. I'm very meticulous about it. I'm known for this. And a lot of skydivers are. I have my gear checked every time by someone else on the plane to make sure my pin, which holds the parachute in, is in good shape and everything looks good on my gear. And so we get on jump run. There's two lights on the plane. One's a red light, one's a green light. The red light comes on, and that's the signal to open the door. So the door is opened back up if it was closed. And now we're looking out. In the old days, we would spot the plane, which means we'd tell the pilot where to go. With GPS now, pilot just goes where he's going to go and tells us to get out. So it's
there you go.
Less work from the skydiver. So when the light goes green, then that's our signal to exit. So the first team immediately climbs out, our first group. And what I mean by climb out is there's handles outside the plane. And so in four-way, for example, our camera guy will get on a step behind the door. He actually climbs outside the plane completely. And then two of the skydivers in the four-way group are outside the plane and two are in. And so depending on which position you're in, you'll be in one of those. And we'll give what is basically a silent count, shake down, out, or ready, set, go. And then the group leaves together. And, you got all that wind at you. If you're competition jumping, you're really thinking about the skydive. What's fun when you're fun jumping is that you can really enjoy the view and the majesty of it and the excitement of I'm getting ready to jump from a plane. That first couple of seconds, you definitely get the roller coaster feel. Even today, you get that falling sensation. But after about 5 seconds, that's gone, and then you really feel more like you're flying. And you lose track of the fact that you're screaming towards the earth at 120 to 125 miles an hour, and you're focused on building formations, flying your body, learning to be better, like anything. And then you fall to about 4,000 feet. We'll do a break off. Everybody will do what's called a track to get away from each other. And so you put your body into a plank kind of position, and you fly as far away from the other skydivers as you can for a few seconds. And then and that way, when you deploy your parachute, you don't have as much of a likelihood of running into each other under canopy, which is bad. So then you've got, depending on the parachute style that you have, some are really fast and aggressive like mine. You've got a couple of minutes of canopy ride getting to the ground. And, I love being under canopy. And sometimes in the summer we'll go up and we'll just deploy our parachutes right out the door and float around and fly around clouds. And that's one of my favorite parts. But then you come in, you land. The parachutes are extremely guidable today. Mine will land going about 30 miles an hour. And so then I try to slow it down before my feet can't run that fast and I hit the ground. But we'll come in, we'll land and take our rigs in and go again. And when we're competition training, I have two rigs, and I'll actually pick one up and meet the plane I just got out of and get on it and go again. We'll do what are called quads. So 4 loads in a row, then we're down for a load, and then 4 loads in a row, down for a load, 4 loads in a row.
Wow, that's a very good description. So when you jump out at, say, 10.5 or 13 and you deploy your chute right away, how long are you in the sky before you get to the ground?
So at our drop zone, they won't let you deploy over 10, but because we're actually in the air pattern for the jets coming into DFW above that.
Yikes.
Which is funny because there are times when you actually look over and you see a jet off and you wonder if people are getting ready to watch you from those jets as you But
very cool.
You've got a good, I don't know that I've ever timed it, but I'm going to say you've got a good 10 or 15 minutes under canopy that you're just, probably 15 minutes that you're just floating around out there, and it's so fun. Sometimes what we'll do are long distance jumps, so we'll go out a few miles and then float back to the drop zone if it's windy. That's fun also.
Hey friends, here at the Adventure Sports Podcast, health is really a priority. That's part of the reason why for over 10 years we've been encouraging people to get out there and have some fun, because when we become more active, it makes us healthier. Our focus on health is one of the reasons that I'm excited about today's sponsor, True Diagnostic. Did you know that your calendar age doesn't always match how old your body truly is? Your biological age, the age of your cells and organs, is actually the number one predictor of your risk for serious diseases like heart disease, cancer, dementia, and more. That's why learning your biological age can be truly life-changing, and that's exactly what the True Age test from True Diagnostic helps you do. It's a simple at-home test. You just prick your finger and then use the provided packaging and a prepaid envelope to send the sample in for testing. No doctor's visits required, no labs, but you'll get great information that can help you to be healthier and understand how you're doing with your own health habits. Now, I always joke that I'm 23 years old. You've heard me say that forever. Obviously, I'm quite a bit older than that, but I'm curious to find out what my biological age is. It's kind of eye-opening when you learn that your biological age, if it's just 5 years older than your actual age, your risk for major diseases can go up by 30 to 50%. That's kind of a wake-up call. But due to epigenetics, and this is the part that really inspires me, up to 90% of biological aging is driven by lifestyle. That means the way that we eat, move, sleep, manage stress, all these things play massive roles in how fast or slow our bodies age. That aligns with the Adventure Sports Podcast so much. So I'm taking the test. I'm excited to find out the results. And in addition to my biological age, True Diagnostic also provides a personalized report that's full of science-backed steps that we can all take to slow down aging and improve our health over time. If you care about protecting your health and want to find out what your real age is, head over to truediagnostic.com and use my code ASP to get 20% off your entire order or subscription. That's truediagnostic.com. Use ASP at checkout to get 20% off. Your future self will thank you. Oh man, this sponsor just keeps reminding me what a lousy shopper I am. The holidays are almost here, and if you still have names on your list, don't panic. Well, guess what? I have a lot of names on my list. Uncommon Goods makes holiday shopping stress-free and joyful with thousands of one-of-a-kind gifts you can't find anywhere else. And so I went on their website just to look around, and lots of original things. Here's one that caught my eye. I really like weather. I like nature. They have these teardrop-shaped glass globes that have a material in them that looks like bubbles, but they change depending on the weather. So it helps you to forecast the weather. And so it's kind of a beautiful item you can set on a shelf, but as you look at it, it can also kind of give you a feel for what's going to happen outside. So I thought that was super cool. Uncommon Goods has all sorts of things like this that I normally wouldn't find in the standard department store. That's the point. I also like the way that their website is broken up for people that you're shopping for. You can click to shop for mom, or click to shop for dad, or kids, or book lovers, gardeners, mixologists. And when you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. And here's my favorite part. With every purchase that you make at Uncommon Goods, they give back $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. And they have donated more than $3.1 million to date. So don't wait. Make this holiday the year you give something truly unforgettable. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/ASP. That's uncommongoods.com/ASP for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, we're all out of the ordinary.
Hi, this is Alan Carl, World Rider. You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast.
You mentioned quite a bit about competing and that it changes the dynamic of a flight. But you mentioned two types of competing, right? You do canopy relative work. You also do free fall formations. Tell our listeners what this means.
Sure. I'll say that I used to do canopy relative work in the 80s when I started jumping. But what that means is you open your parachutes, again, 4 of us or 8. But what we do is 2 different things. One is we try to build different formations like a diamond with 4 canopies. And so they would give you several formations and you try to build them. You have a timed event, 2 or 3 minutes, and you try to build them as many times as you can in the time you have. And then the other canopy formation competition was you'd build a stack. So 4 jumpers high holding on to the tops of each other's parachutes, and on the top rotates to the bottom, and it's called, surprisingly enough, rotation. And you try to do as many of those as you can in a 2-minute time. So that's canopy relative work, and I really don't do that anymore. It's become a dated part of the sport, and it's a little more, frankly, a little more on the risky side because you're messing with an open canopy, Curtis. So as I've gotten older, I've got a little more cautious. How about that?
I'm glad to hear it. Speaking of caution, tell us about a time when things did not go as planned. We know you got through it because you're here to tell us about it, but when things didn't go as planned and what you learned from the experience and any advice you might have for our friends out there who are, saying, well, ooh, what would I do,
Yep, happy to do it. So, like any skydiver with 2,800 jumps, I've got a few of those stories. I have ridden my reserve parachute 4 times, so I can draw on those 4 and give you a couple of instances.
Okay, wait a minute. For people that don't know, you rode your reserve. What does that mean?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I should clarify that. So when you go up, you have a main parachute that you use on every jump, but you also have a reserve parachute packed by a professional rigger that if something happens or is wrong with the first one, you can release it and then you use the reserve. So in 2,800 jumps, I've used my reserve 4 times, which is right about on average. 1 every 800 jumps or so is typical, something like that. So I guess I'm a little above average there, but anyway, or below, depending on how you want to think of it. But so in the 80s, when I was doing canopy relative work, we were building formations one day, and we had what's called a wrap. And basically, we crashed parachutes through each other. We were spinning. So I had one of my buddies' parachutes was wrapped around my head, and we were in a spinning, mess of tangled canopies, and guys are screaming. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, this is really bad, and your heart rate's pumping, and it's pretty frightening. It's one of the reasons I don't do a lot of crew anymore, canopy relative work. But you've got canopy around your head, and the thing you really learn there is you've got to keep yourself together and execute your safety procedure. So, and really make a judgment call. So in this particular case, the other guy that was wrapped up with me, I yelled at him to cut away. I said, Kelly, cut away. I probably yelled it with more panic in my voice than that. And he did, and I thought that would clear his parachute, but his parachute was still wrapped around my head and my back. And I finally got it off of my head where I could see, which not being able to see while falling through the air is bad. But I was able to look up and see that my parachute was reasonably flying, and then I had a decision to make. I could either cut away and ride my reserve, or I could try to land this mix of parachutes. And it wasn't a great decision to have to make because, I've got one parachute wrapped around mine, so it's not flying quite right. The other parachute was also wrapped around my back, so I couldn't see if it was covering my reserve and if it would clear. So I made the decision to land the 2 together, and it obviously worked out okay. I'm still here. It was kind of a rough landing. It was kind of funny. We have a P pit, which is designed for accuracy jumps, and I thought because it's a little softer, the gravel, so I thought if I could hit that P pit, I would be, if I hit a little, which I knew I was going to, I thought that might be softer. Well, the parachute didn't fly quite like it normally did because it wasn't flying right. I ended up like just a few feet short of the P's, and I kind of crunched in. So lots of people were watching on the ground, and you would expect them to come running out and check if you're okay, but mostly what they do is just laugh at me.
You said P pit, and I was thinking PEE. I mean, with that experience like that, wow.
Another one that's similar was a couple of years ago. I'd been upgrading my canopies to more and more aggressive ones, and I had gone to what's called the Katana 150. It's 150 square feet. To give you some sense, in the old days, I jumped a 230 square foot canopy. So this is a much smaller canopy, which means it reacts more aggressively to turns. You get a lot more speed when you land, and consequently, there are some more dangers to it, but they're more fun for the advanced skydivers. And so this was the 7th jump on this new canopy, and one of my buddies kept telling me, hey, your body position is not very good on opening. And I'd done it that way for years. I had 1,000+ jumps at this point in time, and I'm like, whatever. And sure enough, I did what I usually do, which was yank my head and look to watch the parachute open. which threw my body position out, which put the canopy in a spin that was non-recoverable. I knew as it flung me around 2 or 3 times, there was no way I was going to get that canopy to fly straight. So again, you got to think straight in those situations. And I just went to my emergency procedures, which I practice before every jump. I released the main parachute with my right hand, and then in my canopy case, I actually don't have to pull the reserve. So I waited to see if the reserve would come out, and it did. And, I followed the procedures carefully, but I think the most important thing about skydiving is you're going to get in situations like that, and you have to keep a calm head. Folks sometimes don't, and they pay a tough price for it if they panic under those circumstances. You just can't. We all get, jacked up on adrenaline, but the key thing is you just really learn, I have to stay calm.
I saw something with my own eyes, and I'm going to tell this quick story because it's along the same lines of what you're talking about. When I tell the story, people think I'm making it up, but that's okay. I'm going to tell it anyway. It's a true story. One of the guys was quite a bit lower under canopy. A guy above him had a tangled chute, and Pete, he panicked. Just like you said, you got to keep a cool head. He didn't. He was screaming his way to the ground. And, of course, my heart's thumping, and I'm thinking, oh, no, I'm getting ready to see a huge tragedy. Well, one of the guys that was below looked up, grabbed a toggle, swooped, and caught the guy's parachute as it fell by with his hands. It was unbelievable. I didn't think it was even possible. If you don't believe in miracles, folks, this was a miracle moment. They both came down under one parachute. And people would say it's not even possible, but it happened, and it blew my mind. But this guy saved this other guy's life.
Yep, stranger things have happened for sure. It's a crazy world out there.
Pete, tell us a funny story. We talked about some scary times, but tell us a funny story about skydiving.
Okay. Well, this is a little off color, so bear with me. But when you're in a plane and you're climbing, there's less pressure as you go up. So less air pressure. It's just like when you're in the ocean and you go down, you get more pressure on your body. And then as you come up, there's less pressure. Same thing when you're going up through the atmosphere because there's less air. So one of the things that happens is, this is a little embarrassing, but people tend to pass gas as they go up. Sometimes on an airplane, that's a little unpleasant. And one of my buddies on our team was known for being particularly foul. And so one day we're in the Twin Otter. We're at the back of the plane. The door is open, and we're at like 7,000 feet. And passes gas. And it's so bad, the pilot, who is 30 feet in front of us, and we have the doors open, the wind's blowing through. I mean, it's not, like a closed system here. The pilot, he took the plane down 500 feet and then told everybody on the plane, listen, if anybody does that again, whoever that was, I'm landing the plane, nobody gets to jump. So we told our buddy, hey, you got to stop that. It was pretty rough.
And the poor pilot, the rest of you guys get to bail out, but he's stuck.
Well, he is, but there's a lot of wind flowing through the plane. That's why it was hard for us to believe he was affected, because he's got a window that's open, and then we have the back door that's open. So there's air rushing through the plane. So he's okay once we get out, I think.
Wow. Well, what the listeners may have also picked up on in the intro is that you've been an entrepreneur all these years. So how has that helped or harmed, a career as an entrepreneur? How does that help your sport?
Well, I'll say a couple things. I think starting a business on your own is a bit of a risk. So it matches my personality, that I would do that just like I would leap from planes. So it makes some sense. But being an entrepreneur has been great because it has allowed me more flexibility to pursue my hobbies and my interests. I love sailing. You mentioned that. And I love skydiving. And so it's really nice to have more flexibility in terms of time. I don't have anyone I have to ask to get off work. I just have to decide if I can do it. And my business will be in good shape or not. So I think being an entrepreneur has been great because it's allowed me so much flexibility, and it's a decision like skydiving that I wouldn't change for sure.
So I know everyone wants to know what's your line of work?
Great question. I own a couple of companies, all software and consulting in the energy space, which until 6 months ago or so was a great business to be in. But I run the software company that we have. And I've got about 50 employees that work for me in that business. And then one of my business partners runs a consulting firm, and another business partner runs another consulting firm. And so between the three of us, we have about 80 employees and subcontractors who work for us in that industry.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So a lot of people want to make that happen. It sounds exciting that you did it.
It's fun. It's just like skydiving or anything else you do. It's work, right? You have to decide, I'm going to do something, I'm going to work hard at it. And you have to be okay with failure. taking a risk means you could fail. So sometimes you have to go start again or try something else, and you've got to just be okay with that. But taking those opportunities, whether it's leaping from a plane or starting a business, those are things that I'm happy that I've done and have never regretted, even when things haven't gone as well. I've still been grateful for the experiences.
Among entrepreneurial circles, I think it's pretty common. People talk about how many times you might have to fail before you succeed. And people who have not tried the entrepreneurial path, we'll say it that way, they see someone who succeeded and they say, wow, how lucky you were, man. You just went out and did that, and bang, you're making this money. You've got the lifestyle you wanted, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's pretty common for the entrepreneur to say, yeah, you don't know the 8 times that I fell on my face before this one worked. The years of hard work. And was that part of your experience, or were you one of the luckier ones?
Well, I think I've been very blessed, very lucky. There's no question about that. But it doesn't mean I haven't failed a number of times and suffered setbacks. Right now, the price of oil has greatly affected our business. It's a big setback for us, and we're working through it. So while it seems fun to run a business a lot of times, right now, it's less fun in the market, and you're trying to figure out how not to fail, and that's the key. So yeah, you're right. There's a lot of work that goes into it. Just like any sport, I watch people do other adventure sports that I like. One is kite surfing, and I went and tried kite surfing. And what I learned about kite surfing is if you want to do that, you have to work hard because it's not easy. And I think that's really the case for any adventure sport. To be good at it, it requires a lot of work. It just happens to be fun while you're doing it.
I couldn't agree more. It seems that we learn more from our mistakes often than we do from our easy successes. It's those times that we fail and learn that we maybe gain the most ground. So I just don't believe that failure is failure anymore. It's all progress toward the prize.
That's right. It's a learning experience, I think. And I try to do that every day with things happening in my business or my personal life or whatever. But I try to learn from it and say, okay, well, how do I do this better next time? Whether it's a skydive that I didn't do as well, or a business decision that I made that came back to bite me.
Right. Well, Pete, back to skydiving. How does skydiving benefit society or individuals as a whole? What has it done for you in your life?
I touched on this earlier, that there's such a camaraderie to it. And what I'll say is, like any person in the world, I've had ups and downs in my life, things where things haven't been as good. What I've loved about skydiving is that it's like a brotherhood. It's a group of people, men and women, that you meet at this drop zone, and you're all drawn by the same thing. And people are not perfect, right? Certainly not at drop zones or any other place, but you meet a group of people that I feel like are generally, a lot of good folks. And I have made some of the best friends of my entire life through skydiving. One of my current business partners, I actually met skydiving, and he became a key factor in my business success over the last few years. And I just feel like it's been so rewarding. The friendships I've made and the sense of community that I have from that sport. I'm just very grateful for how it brings people together from diverse backgrounds. And you'll walk away from the sport realizing you've made some of the best friends of your life. And I think skydiving's a little bit unique in that because of how it brings people together to make these jumps on a plane. So different than sailing, which I love equally, but where I'm still sailing my own boat and it's the people I took out. To go skydiving, you're meeting with a group of people you may not know, and it sort of forces you to interact, and that's how you build that friend and family base that you have. And it's been deeply, deeply rewarding for me.
Oh, that's great. Do you think that skydiving is for everyone? You think everyone should give it a try? Or do you think that it takes a certain personality type? It's going to benefit some people more than others?
I won't say that I think it's for everyone, definitely. I do think there's some risk to it, and people who are interested should think about it. It's not a roller coaster ride. Even on a tandem jump, you are taking your life into your hands when you jump from a plane. There are some people who are just inherently afraid of heights, and I don't think they should do it. If they're terrified, don't do it. But that said, I think it's a great sport for a lot of people to try. And we see that a lot at the drop zone. A lot of people come out and make a tandem jump, and maybe that's all they're ever going to do. But I will say it will open your mind to new experiences, and I think that's fantastic. And then there's that small group of those of us that are really nuts who just love it and have to keep doing it. And you won't know if you're one of those folks till you try it. I've met so many people who said, I was going to make one tandem jump because it was on my bucket list. And then after I did it, I couldn't stop. I've been doing it for 10 years. And I have 5,000 jumps or whatever it is. And I just think it's a great sport to try. If the idea sounds great, go do it.
Well, that's cool. Well, folks, this has been another Adventure Sports Podcast interview with Pete Waldroop, skydiver extraordinaire. And Pete, thank you very much for your time. We sure appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, and appreciated being here today, Kurt. Good talking.
Yeah, take care.
You too.
Hey guys, would you like to help us make the Adventure Sports Podcast successful? Take a few minutes to rate us in iTunes and leave a review. Subscribe, rate, review. Thanks.